Injuries. I've had a lot of them, and I have a lot to say about them. Let's talk. This video is going to be broken up into two sections because I really think there's two main components to injuries. There's the physical side, and there's the mental side. Let's start with the physical side. You just got injured. What do? Obviously, I am not a doctor. I am not training to be a doctor. This is a video from an athlete's perspective. I have had many injuries that have affected both my athletic pursuits and my daily life. I am not a doctor. This is not medical advice, but this is what I think right now about injuries. My first video that I made sit down talking style like this, I yapped so much, and I'm going to yap a lot, but I have notes now. What do I do when I get an injury? What should you do when you get an injury? What should you do? Like right away, you just got injured. You know, hey, I'm injured. This might be serious. What do? Now, old school thinking would say RICE, rest, ice, compress, elevate, right? Now, from more modern research, we know that's not quite true. Now, there's not a whole bunch of data on this, but I will link some studies below. But mechanistically, when you think about it, the whole RICE concept is based on limiting inflammation. Now, on the surface, people hear inflammation, they're like, inflammation, bad. You get the people who are misinformed and crazy about seed oils. That's another video. You hear inflammation and people think bad. But inflammation is the driving factor in many important processes in our bodies. So the idea of just, oh, I've gotten injured, let me just elevate it, let me slap some ice on it, let me compress it, let me elevate it, let me reduce the inflammation. Inflammation is how we heal, right? When we get blood flow, this is primarily about soft tissue injuries, to be clear. We actually want blood flow. Blood flow is how we heal something, right? So if I'm looking for a quicker overall recovery from an injury, I don't want to just be slapping ice on it. I want it to heal quicker, right? When I slap ice on it, when I take a bunch of ibuprofen and NSAIDs, what am I doing? I'm just delaying how fast I can heal. And also, I could be hindering my overall recovery. We already know that NSAIDs like ibuprofen, when it comes to building muscle, can inhibit muscle growth because of that same idea of restricting blood flow, impacting muscle protein synthesis, etc. Mechanistically, it makes sense, but we also do have some data on that. So that's kind of my view on RICE, is we don't necessarily want to be killing that inflammation. Now, you tweak your ankle, you have a game tomorrow, you have a track meet tomorrow. That's where ice can be valuable. But if you're actually just looking to recover from an injury, not like, oh, let me feel fine pain relief wise, which those things do. RICE does help relieve pain for sure for a lot of injuries. If you're not looking to just put a Band-Aid on your problem, right? Just relieve the pain. If you're actually trying to heal from this injury quickly and effectively, it looks like RICE is not the solution to that. Now we're going to the doctors. What do? We go to the doctors. I have been to so many doctors, especially in America. The whole process of going to the doctors for an injury is not thrilling, to say the least, right? Even when you know it's a soft tissue injury, most likely your doctor's going to make you go get an x-ray. The x-ray obviously will show nothing because it's a soft tissue injury. All of that is to then get the MRI. And sometimes they'll want you to do 8 weeks of PT before you get the MRI. I understand why they lean towards that way, because it can be expensive. And that's just kind of the administrative side. Oftentimes doctors will just prescribe, even well-intentioned, they'll just prescribe ibuprofen because they want to relieve your pain. And that's fine, but once again, if you have an actual injury, it does not solve the issue. It might cloud it, might make it feel better for a couple days. But if it's a more chronic issue or a more severe soft tissue injury, obviously it's just not gonna cut it. Let's talk about physical therapists. Physical therapists, in my experience, and I'm sure many people's experience, are hit or miss. Both on the actual diagnosis of your injury and also on just obviously the patient care side. Like any doctor, everyone has different patient care standards and some people just aren't a fit. It's important that you feel like your physical therapist listens to you because obviously they know more than you, right? But they need to be able to listen to you, because I've had a physical therapist in the past that I've left. Sounds so reassuring, and when you bring things up to them, they dismiss it with a laugh, and you're like, I feel like I'm not getting better at this thing, or I feel like I need to work on this more because I feel like that. They just dismiss it. I had a guy who just was like, I'm the best at this, basically, which is shitty in general. Chiropractors, We all know about chiropractors, right? Some are good, lots are bad. Chiropractors get into like hella pseudoscience. Physical therapists do a little bit, but chiropractors can often really get into some fucking crazy pseudoscience. Stuff that's like just not even grounded in sports science, like at all, or just and medicine or sports medicine, or just like no chiropractors. They're going to tell you one thing. Chiropractors can, depending on your injury, help with short-term pain relief for sure, but often not a long-term solution. We're talking about sports injuries, right? There's coaches. What do coaches have to say about injuries? Every coach is different. Some coaches will push you through it. Some coaches will advise you to see XYZ professional. Hopefully they suggest you see a doctor. They might have you see their athletic trainer. Athletic trainers are, in that physical therapist realm, but obviously definitely a different thing. The point of talking about all these different professionals with regard to injuries is that at every step along the way, you will be told a different thing. It could be you're being told a different diagnosis. I've seen 3 PTs, gotten 3 different diagnoses for one injury, right? It could be their plan of action, right? The actual therapy that the physical therapist wants to put you through. The actual exercises could vary wildly with the same injury. Athletic trainers are going to say it's one thing. Coaches are going to say it's one thing. Everyone is going to say it's something different. And that's kind of hard to like make your decision, especially when you're playing a sport and you're like, I have to be ready by a certain time. When you're talking to your coach about when can you start practicing again. When you're talking to your physical therapist, when can I start practicing again? When you're talking to your athletic trainer, when can I start practicing again? And the speed and the modalities and this recovery method and that recovery method, it gets messy fast. It's hard to understand what to do. How do you know who's correct? For me, I kind of pick the methods that I think are best. I like to do a lot of my own research about injuries, not so I can go into a PT or an athletic trainer or a doctor and be like, I know more than you, but I like to know a lot about whatever possible injury I could have and the science-backed methods of recovery. Oftentimes I find it's a little bit of everything. With a lot of injuries, I'll probably link it or pop up a blurb somewhere on screen about this like peace and love acronym that people are talking about more instead of using RICE in terms of recovering from injuries. Any sort of program for your injury that revolves around strengthening, right? And that's obviously more of a physical therapy side. A lot of times you'll hear, oh, XYZ is just tight. Your hamstrings are just tight. And a lot of times those things are not untrue. Your calves and hamstrings might be tight, and that could lead to an Achilles injury like I have right now. But those are often not the cause of it. And I think understanding the cause, not just how to recover. Obviously, I don't want that to happen again. So understanding actually how it happened, right? That's one thing I forgot to mention is like, you're going to hear that XYZ is tight and that the whole body is a chain, which it is, to be clear, it is. But that doesn't mean that that's the cause. And that doesn't mean if you just release the tightness, now you're okay. For me, I do have tight hamstrings and calves. That did not cause my Achilles injury that I have. But in addition with other steps to my program, which I'll talk a little about later, making sure that I'm rolling out, and massaging just so I'm a little less tight in general, that can be beneficial with the other steps. Not in place, not by itself. If I just do those things, it's going to take a lot longer for me to recover from this injury. It's never just. It's this and. That's how I like to think about injuries. It's this and. Back to what you should do. I think it's pertinent to do things that are unlikely to exacerbate your injury. As I previously stated, me rolling out and massaging my calves and my hamstrings will almost certainly not make my Achilles injury worse. It might do fuck all. It might do nothing, but it almost certainly will not impair my recovery or cause me more pain. But I think for most people, when it comes to soft tissue injuries, it is about a little bit of rest, but moving and doing what you can do with limited pain or no pain. That will typically be low amplitude strengthening exercises for a given muscle group or joint area. For instance, for my Achilles injury, right? That means I'm doing a lot of isometrics, good loading, and it's obviously not a lot of force, but they definitely help with strengthening, right? And then once you get good with isometrics for me, talking about my Achilles injury, once you get good with isometrics, then you can move on to single leg isometrics. And then you can work on weighted isometrics. You can do that in conjunction with heel raises, and then you can do traditional calf raises with a full range of motion as you strengthen your Achilles. It's about loading your injury slowly, but actually progressing with a weight or a time or some sort of progression. That is how I like to think about injuries. If you do your given exercises that you've come up with, or your physical therapist or your athletic trainer, if you come back the next day and it hurts like more than usual, not sore, like really hurts, maybe you need to do less weight. Maybe you're not ready for that range of motion yet. Maybe you're not ready for that range of motion with that weight. It can be a lot of different factors, but at the end of the day, when it comes to the physical side, you have to listen to your body. You can't do nothing. You can't just rest. Just rest might make it feel better a little bit. And then you try to go back to do your sport or your lifting or your running or whatever you do, and you're going to run into problems right away. You need to strengthen whatever your problem is, whether it is literally strengthening the issue you have or strengthening the muscles around it. I have a torn labrum. I'm not healing that labrum by doing, external rotation and banded exercises like that, right? But I'm strengthening the muscles around it to help support my labrum. Your recovery has to revolve around strengthening. Holy shit, I've been talking for 26 minutes. Oh, editor me hates this. Let's talk about the mental side. Not being able to do what you wanted to do sucks. Injuries are never timely, right? Obviously, like beginning of the off season for your sport's probably great, but you would prefer to not have that, obviously. But I've had some frustratingly timed injuries. Back in 2023, in like a week and a half period, I both tore my labrum, which I didn't learn for about 3 months, and jacked up my knee and ended up getting surgery. And both of those injuries, week and a half apart, happened right at a time in my life where I was just getting into legit shape. I had a musical I was doing in which I had to be shirtless. And so I really focused on dieting hard and really being disciplined with my diet for the first time, basically ever. And I got into great shape and I was super consistent with my lifting. Leanest shape of my life, strongest, looked great. I was really proud of myself. I got to be in that fun place for like a month. And then it was knee surgery and months of PT for my knee and debating over surgery for my shoulder for, 7 months, trying to see if this PT worked. No, if this PT didn't work. This physical therapist didn't work. For months. It was the lowest mental state I've ever been in my entire life. It was horrible. I guess I'll say this. I broke my phone. I was so frustrated at one point. I just kind of threw my phone across the room at one point and it broke and I had to get a new one. Shout out my blue phone. Because I was so done. And both of those injuries, I didn't have any control over. It was an accident, but I slipped on something, landing a flip. And there's no way that I could have known that thing would have been slippery. It had been safe before, and it wasn't anymore. And I had landed my flip fine, and I fell on my shoulder and tore my labrum. And it was not anyone's particular fault, but it was not my fault. I did what I was supposed to do, and that was heartbreaking. And the other one, I just landed a flip normally, like I normally land it, and my knee hated it. That was a hard part of it too, is if I had gotten injured due to poor training or not recovering enough or doing things stupidly or not having great technique, that would have been frustrating and heartbreaking for sure. But not being able to blame myself made it hurt more because it just felt random. And it was random and it was unlucky. Yeah, mentally, it's hard to explain to someone how much it hurts, right? People understand that it hurts not to be able to use your body in the way that you've been able to, the way that you want to. That hurts, obviously, right? And people understand that. But it does feel very, very alone, especially when there's not someone else injured to go through with you. Right now with my Achilles, I go to practice every day and do almost nothing, right? I trained so hard all of the fall, right? I worked my ass off this fall preparing to be a decathlete, right? I'd never done the decathlon before. I worked so hard all fall. I'm learning so many different events and I'm training sprinting. I only took up track like a year ago and now I'm competing on a team and I'm so excited to do that. But that's been put in jeopardy with this injury right now. And I train super smart and I eat great and I have really good sprinting technique and I got injured anyways. And so mentally that's hard for me to deal with in terms of I don't want to be injured. And then also it's like it already has affected my season. We're supposed to compete in a few weeks and I'm not going to be able to compete at the first meet. I've not sprinted in spikes since mid-December. something you work so hard for. And it's not just, oh, you want to compete well. It's also, most athletes, me included, obviously, enjoy the practice, right? It's not just, oh, I want to compete and this is going to affect my ability to compete well. It's also, you enjoy your sport. I enjoy practicing. I enjoy going to practice and getting to sprint and having some fun competition with your teammates. That's enjoyable. And I don't get to have that joy. And in fact, I go to practice and I get to watch others have that joy. And then you feel jealous. And then you're thinking about how you will stack up with your teammates. And then there's that thing in the back of your head that's like, I knew I could do XYZ better than them, which is a weird thought, but it's hard. I've not got a lot to say. Like the mental health part, talk to people, I guess. Just talk to your family, talk to other athletes, talk to a sports psychologist. Those things can be valuable for sure. But just talk to people, because some injuries are slow and it will take a while to recover. And yeah, your season might be affected. Your performances almost certainly will be affected to an extent, right? Especially in a sport for me like track. I can't make up for my lack of recent training with my brains. This isn't like football where I'll be a smarter player. No, it's like I just need to be my fastest. That's the whole point. Hopefully someone out there who's injured derives some sort of value or just some sort of kinship with me, at least, as I talk about my injuries. Don't know what the video will be about next week, but I'll see you next time. Peace.